Welcome to another edition of the Under the Dome podcast. I am your host, Ben Belden. It's been a while since we've done a podcast, but these are going to be coming more frequently, we imagine, although we don't have set in stone plans, but the season is about to start, so we're going to be pushing out some content here at the Under the Dome podcast and over at slapthesign.com, so make sure you check that out as well. I am joined by Nathan Urbach and Mason Plummer, who I will bring in here in just a second. But make sure, like I say, you're checking us out all over the places that you listen to your podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere where there's a podcast, iHeartRadio, all that junk. Anywhere there's a place where you can listen to podcasts, we're probably there. So go ahead and check us out wherever. Make sure you check us out on YouTube as well. And if, we're going to, as the season starts, I have a few plans for the YouTube channel outside of just podcasting stuff. So, make sure you're checking us out over there for that type of content as well. So that stuff out of the way, I want to make sure that we mention a couple of our sponsors. First, there's SeatGeek. If you're looking to go to any sporting event as the summer winds down or, throughout the fall, use SeatGeek for your ticket buying experience. And if you apply the code TheLoopSports to your as a coupon code at checkout, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So that's The Loop Sports as that coupon code. Also, 26shirts.com. They make kind of vintage, one-of-a-kind shirts for different sporting teams and cities, and they retire the shirts after a while. So if you want I don't know how to say this. If you want kind of a shirt that not a lot of other people have, go to 26shirts.com. A lot of the proceeds to those things go to help families in need. So it's a worthy cause. You can get a cool shirt out of it. 26shirts.com is where you want to go for that. And lastly, the people who have helped us set up this podcast, electrosound.com. They hooked me up with some audio equipment and things, and they do some audio consulting and that type of deal. So electrosound.com for your audio needs. Okay, now that we've got all the propers out of the way, we're going to actually do this podcast a little bit differently today. I'm going to bow out to the background, I guess you could kind of say, and we're going to allow Nathan, who, as you know, if you are a longtime listener of the Under the Dome podcast, you know Nathan very well. We're going to allow him to kind of host and navigate the conversation a little bit, which I'm excited about. Takes a little bit of pressure off of me, to be quite honest, and I like that, especially with, I was at a wedding yesterday, so especially with how I feel today, I'm more than willing to relinquish some of the talking over to Nathan. So we're going to do that. Nathan, you can take it away, my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me again, Ben, or I should probably say thanks for coming on with me since I'm the host today. Yes. But also we're obviously welcoming in Mason Plummer as well. So how are you doing, Mason?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Nathan and Ben. Appreciate it.
Perfect. So obviously us three, we talk all the time about wanting to get on the podcast and different things like that. So one of the things with the season coming up here in just over a week, wanted to talk maybe a little bit of the Louisville football, if any of us have any inside info there. And then, just kind of go with some of our Notre Dame predictions and then predictions for Louisville as well. So I guess the first thing to ask you guys is, do you guys know anything about Louisville? Do you guys have anything you guys want to share about Louisville? And then what are you expecting kind of game one? Even if that doesn't mean that that's kind of how it's going to be for the rest of the year. But I'm just excited to talk a little bit about, what Notre Dame will do week one.
I guess
I'll start with Ben.
Yeah, okay. The thing I know about Louisville is an absolute train wreck. I guess to kind of put it mildly, I think they're on their way out, I guess, of being kind of a a turbulent few years in the Louisville football program. I guess we can kind of put it that way. I was surprised, I'm not a guy that pays attention to lines real closely, but at the wedding last night, I was talking to another Notre Dame football fan, and he made me aware that the line for the Louisville game is like 39 points, which I can't really remember a time where Notre Dame was favored by that much. I'm sure that there is a time, in relative recent memory, but for another Power 5 school to be a 39-point dog to the Irish is just, I don't know, it kind of speaks to what Louisville fans are expecting for their season. I know that at Slap the Sign, we're working with the Louisville sister site, brother site, whatever. And basically, from what I know from talking to those guys over there, they're basically like, hopefully we just don't get royally embarrassed. And so that's kind of I don't know. That's kind of my feeling on Louisville thus far without knowing a whole lot of specifics about their actual football team, if that kind of makes sense.
Perfect. I know they got their new coach in Satterfield over from Appalachian State. And then actually I did a little bit of research before we started the pod today, and I don't think it's a 39-point favorite, but I think it's close to like 21 or like 20 and a half. So, still a really big spread overall.
I'm going to look it up because maybe I got bad info. So I'm going to look it up.
Right.
Keep going.
But even then, for an away game, that's big time. It's a big time spread. And, we know what they had with Brian Van Gorder last year. So, Mason, do you have anything kind of else to throw out there for Louisville?
When I heard Ben say 39, I was thinking, like, probably not. Like, there's no way. So I looked it up. Westgate has Notre Dame at minus 20, and Caesars has Notre Dame at minus 20.5, which I think is about right. If Notre Dame doesn't win by 3 touchdowns, I think that says something. Notre Dame needs to come out and smack a team that went 2-10 last year. And Notre Dame, we played well against Michigan last year in the first game, but I feel like they would like to come out kind of slow and try to figure things out. But it'd be refreshing to see them go out and really hit somebody in the mouth. So I'm hoping that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm upset because I just actually, I looked it up too, and the person that gave me that bad info listens to this podcast, so you know who you are. So let that be a lesson to do your own research rather than listen to someone else. But sorry for cutting you off, Nathan. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to say, I know one thing I know about their team is, Jawan Pass, their quarterback, who didn't necessarily have the greatest of seasons last year, but he was a decent prospect coming out of high school, or a decent recruit coming out of high school following like Lamar Jackson. He was a legitimate 4-star and had some other big-time programs after him. So I think he does definitely have some talent, and but we know how bad their defense was last year, and we shouldn't necessarily expect, even with Satterfield coming in, and he's been an established coach for a while. I don't think we have too much to worry about with Louisville. But yeah, just kind of moving on a little bit here. What are your guys' general thoughts of just the Notre Dame football team as a whole? If you want to throw out your prediction right now, you can. And then, or if you want to maybe just throw out like a score prediction for Louisville as well, that might be something we can talk about too. But what are your overall thoughts as we get really close to the season? And this time we can start with Mason.
I'm fairly confident, not quite as confident as I was last season, just because I feel like the linebacker position is going to be a problem. But that could be figured out in the first couple weeks, and we could see guys really break through and make the linebacker position their own. I'll start with a record prediction. I've said since the offseason, like knowing the talent that we were going to lose, especially on the defensive side, I think Dexter Lawrence production can be matched, so I'm not too worried about that. But on the offensive side, but I have Notre Dame at 10-2, and I've stuck with that. I think it's going to be tough to get out of Stanford, Michigan, and Georgia all the way and come away with wins. I think you probably drop 2 of those, and if you win 2 of the 3 of those, then maybe you lose 1 in between. The schedule isn't easy this season by any means, and let's see. I'll throw out my prediction for Louisville as well. I'll go 42-10.
Ooh, nice.
Irish.
So,
of course.
So to kind of talk about some things, I guess, that Mason touched on, Where do I start? I think I think there's going to be some growing pains with this Notre Dame team early on, and I tried to write on this yesterday. I don't know if it really came out particularly well. Like, there are people out there, I guess, that think that, Notre Dame needs to come out and beat Louisville like freaking 50-some to 59-10 or something along those lines. And, I think... Here's the thing. Like, I get a little bit bugged by people that, like, talk about, like, the style points and, crushing teams and that type of deal. Because here, for Notre Dame, obviously, we're talking about some of the holes that they have in their defense, like Mason mentioned, and there are obvious holes and things. But, like, here's the thing. Like, I don't know. Brian Kelly hasn't been, like, the type of coach, or at least Notre Dame hasn't been the type of team under Brian Kelly, I guess is the better way to put it, that they're just going to beat the brakes off of a team because, I don't know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is just me in my own head thinking this way, but, like, to me, when Notre Dame gets up a little bit, that's when, like, Brian Kelly starts to try different things that are a little bit out of character, sub some guys in, put some guys in a little bit of a different position, and, kind of you see the growing pains on the fly, I suppose. And I don't have a problem with that because, as I kind of said the other day, I think that I think that Notre Dame is gonna. I would rather see Lawrence Keys, all right, on the first, or Braden Lindsey. Let's use Braden Lindsey as an example in like the first quarter at some point when the game is still meaningful and there's still meaningful snaps around, than waiting to see Braden Lindsey until they're up 28-0 when he's playing against other second stringers and he's playing with Notre Dame second stringers, I suppose, if that kind of makes sense. So I sort of think that there's a decent possibility, and I'm trying to get to this point in a roundabout way, that, things aren't going to look real pretty against Louisville and even New Mexico, but I don't think that that's going to be a cause for concern long term, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know. I don't really do season predictions all that much because I think that there's, I think that Notre Dame's in a better position than they have been, and so I think that they can win every game. Do I necessarily think they're going to go down to Georgia and win? No, but I don't know. I think this is like, I've said it before, if I had to make a prediction, and the way I kind of phrased it was for wins, if I had to make a prediction and you told me I wasn't allowed to choose 10, I would choose 11 before I would choose 9, if that kind of makes sense. So I think it's going to be a generally a pretty good season with, maybe a few growing pains at the beginning. And I know that was a long-winded answer, but it was something that it's, like I said, something I've been burning on for a while.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what you guys are saying, and I'm trying to learn this role of host here, so it's kind of interesting. But kind of going off what you said, Ben, about expecting so much like the first game or even maybe the first couple games, I'm exactly with you on that. Like, I would much rather see some of these guys against Louisville and New Mexico get prepared for Georgia. I mean, I think we all agree that Lawrence Keys, Braden Lindsey, even guys like Jameer Smith and Kyron Williams, like, they have talent. Now, we might not always have to see those guys with their talent because of, when Michael Young comes back, when Cole Kmet comes back from injury, and then they're going to lean on guys like Chase Claypool and Chris Fink and, Jafar Armstrong, Tony Jones. You guys get my point. I pretty much just named the whole freaking roster. But those guys need to play, and they're going to need to be leaned on here at some point. And that point happens to be probably weeks 1 and 2 when those guys are out. Some of those big name guys are out. And, I think some other factors come into play. I mean, it's a Monday game. I know it's the first game of the season, but it's not like these guys are used to playing on a Monday. It's an away game. It's a night game. It doesn't matter that it's Louisville. It's the first game of the year. There's going to be some jitters. Who knows? Maybe Louisville gets off to like a quick 10-0 start, and then, how fans are, people are going to freak out. But even if they get off to a 10-0 start, I wouldn't necessarily sit there and be completely worried that Notre Dame is going to go out and blow the game, and all of a sudden our hopes and dreams are done after week 1. Stuff happens. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. Maybe piggyback a little bit off of what I said right there. But but at the same time,